we are back for another session. So this time low level design mein we're gonna try to do another question. I think in the first video we had done a blackjack game. We had come up with a framework and we had implemented a blackjack ka low level design. This time let's pick up another topic, low level design questions. Yeah, this time also I feel like it's cool if we can time it, because ultimately the interview is going to be timed. So the purpose of this exercise is to have confidence in low level design, and I think that confidence will only come if we give if we do these exercises in a timed manner. Now I don't think it's necessary that we should complete it exactly in 40 minutes, 45 minutes, but at least we'll get a sense of how much time is being taken by this. Alright, so I guess we can get started. Let's find a question first and then I'll start the time. Let's see. Let's find a low level design question. Okay, so you have chess game, coffee vending machine, hotel management system. Are these a list of questions? Yeah. Interesting. So which one should we pick up? Let's pick up, I don't know, which one? Stack Overflow? What is Stack Overflow? Users can post questions, answer questions, and comment on question and answers. Users can vote on question and answers. You should have tags associated. Questions should have tags associated with them. Users can search for a question based on a keyword. There's some search functionality as well. They can search for questions based on keyword tags or user profile. A reputation score to user based on activity. Maybe we can do this. Yeah, maybe we can start with Stack Overflow. I'm going to start off the timer and let's see what happens. So I'll copy the requirements of this and I'll create another folder called Stack Overflow, and let's add a requirements, or maybe the question.txt file, and put it over here. Right, designing Stack Overflow. Okay, awesome. So let's create another file called main.py. That will be our program, and let's open our framework on the side. And I think we can just go through the framework and go through each step, right? I think that makes sense. Okay, so we have designing Stack Overflow. Users can post questions, answers, and comment on question answers. Okay, you can post questions, answer questions, and add comments. They can vote on questions and answers. So voting is allowed on both questions as well as answers. Questions should have tags associated with them. Okay, when we say tags associated with them, it can be of two types. One is that based on the content of the question, a tag is sort of automatically decided that this question should have this tag. The other way would be where the user posting the question adds a tag to it. I think it should be where the user posting the question adds a tag to it for now, like similar to how it happens on Reddit as well. Getting the tags from the content is more of a, I think, a data science sort of problem. Questions should have tags for users. Users can search for questions based on keywords, tags, or user profiles. Okay, I'm not sure. Based on keywords, I understand. Search for questions based on keywords, based on tags, based on user profiles. Like they can search for questions which are given by a particular user, probably. The system should assign a reputation score to users based on their activity and the quality of their contributions. Okay, there's some sort of a reputation score which gets calculated for each user, which is sort of dependent on the activity and the quality of their contributions. And the system should handle concurrent access and ensure data consistency. So multiple users should be able to connect at the same time, essentially. So this basically what this means is we need to we need to have some sort of guaranteed consistency. Like even if two users are posting a question at the same, can post question, answer question, so they cannot edit questions, right? Yeah, but if two people are posting questions or answering questions or commenting on questions at the same time, our system should be able to handle it. So I think so some sort of using locks, we can have some implementation over there, right? Okay, so understanding the problem, I think that is clear. Who are the user and what will they do, functional as well as non-functional. Okay, requirements. Okay, let's look at functional requirements first. User can post question, right? User can answer question. User can vote question or answer or comment. Can the user vote on comments? Vote question and answer? No. Okay, so let's not add comments over here. User can search using keyword on the question. Basically, you can search for a question, or you can search for a tag, or it can search for particular user profile. These three things. And what else? User can search for questions. The system should be able to assign reputation scores to users based on their activity. So some reputation score is defined, fine, for each user. Based on their activity, and system should handle concurrent access. Okay, and that is non-functional requirement, I think. Functional requirement, concurrent access should be handled. Awesome. So we have these requirements. I think the next step is, so just a small time check. Okay, 5.5 minutes it takes to jot down the requirements. Next we have entities, right? So what I think last time we used some sort of a convention while doing this, which was this, that we're gonna write the class names, we're gonna write the variables which are there in the class in brackets ahead of the class names, and we're gonna write the functions that each class has. And what we decided is that only when we have done this part and we know exactly how many classes are there supposed to be, what behaviors there are, what kind of variables are there in each class, can we move on to the next step, which is implementing the actual implementation of that. So let's kind of get back here, and entities involved, right? Awesome. So we will, okay, definitely user class is supposed to be there. User, what would they have? They would probably have a name which is of type string. You can even just write str. What else does a user have? The user has a reputation score. which is probably an integer. Let's say it's an integer. We'll calculate the value of that integer somehow. We'll decide how to do that, but for now we just know that that the user has a name, the user has a reputation score. What else does the user have? I mean, they have abilities to post questions, answer questions, and stuff like that, but the user object itself, I don't think it has anything else, right? Do we need to store how many questions they've asked or the questions that the user has asked in the user object itself? I don't think so. That's not a property of the user per se. Reputation score and the name does seem like a property of the user. The rest of the things, I don't think so. So we do have a user object, but it just has a name and reputation score. Next we have a question object, right? We have an answer object. We would have a comment object, I guess. Answer. So, the next thing what I'm trying to figure out, are there any commonalities between question, answer and comment? Because if there are, we can kind of just have one parent class from which these extend, right? So someone asks a question, you can vote up a question or an answer. So like the voting is there in both questions as well as answers. They have a probably one-to-many relation, so each question can have multiple answers because in Stack Overflow that is allowed. Do we need to have separate classes for these things, or do we need to have a parent class and both these classes kind of extend from that? So they have, let's see, let's write it out for questions. So it has the content, let's call it content, which is of type string. The question would have a rating, which is of type integer. It will start from 0, and if anyone rates the question, like anyone upvotes the question, it will go up. If anyone downvotes the question, it will go down. So it has an integer, signed integer rating. What else would a question have? It has tags. Let's keep tags as an enum for now, right? Let's keep tags as an enum, and let's pick a couple of topics. Let's pick sports, let's pick gaming, let's take movies. That's it, because it can be user defined as well, but I think for now, just for this functionality, we want to see tags. Like people should be able to search using tags, and people should be able to tag their questions. So there is a tag of sports or gaming or movies. What else is the question? Does the answer have a tag as well? Questions should have tags associated with them. No, answers don't have tags with them. Okay, so are the question entity, does it have anything else? Do we want the ability to edit a question? Let's leave out editing. I don't think the requirements called for editing as well, so I think it's okay. We have answer. The answer would have content of string. Oh, the question also probably has a user, right, attached to it. User. Do we need to store that in the question object itself, like who asked that question? Maybe. I'll just add user. We'll see if that needs to be stored in the question object itself. Otherwise we'll have to keep some, or maybe we can keep like a post, and the post can be of type question or answer. And can we vote on comments? Vote, no, only on question answer voting is supported. And user can post questions, answer questions, vote, search, reputation. Can the user not comment? Can post questions, answer questions, and comment on questions and answers. So questions, okay. User can comment on questions and answers. So they can comment on questions and answers. So a comment on a question would be different from an answer for that question. Okay. The answer also has something similar, right? Does the answer have tags? No, the answer doesn't have tags associated with them. So the answer is this. The answer probably has a rating. It doesn't have tags. It does have a user associated with it. Maybe it makes sense to create a post entity, and the post has some content, and the post has some it would have some content. It would have a particular rating of integer, and it would have a user, right? These three things it has. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna basically extend question of type post, right? And answer is also of type post. And these things then won't actually have the content and rating, because that would be imported, and the user, because that would come up from the post. And I think rest of it can remain the same. Also, I think it makes sense to have some sort of an ID. So each post does have an ID, right? Because otherwise how are we going to keep track of the questions and answers, right? So it makes sense for the post. So do we also want to include multiple tags? No, we'll consider single tag for now. Question and answers can comment, so repetition score. Questions should be tagged with one tag at most, right? We'll consider that as a requirement. Quick time check. Yeah, 13 minutes. Okay, so we have a question post with tags, we have a post, and then our answer, our question and answer kind of extend from a post. So a post can be of type question, or it can be of type answer. The post and an answer is pretty much the same. The question adds a tag to it. That's pretty much it. Rest of it I think is the same. When you think about comments, can people upvote comments as well? Users can search for questions, they can comment on questions answers, they can vote on, no, only voting on question and answer is there. So comment is simple, but we will still keep an ID for the comment, we will keep the content of the comment, and we will keep the user who posted the comment, right? So we got a bunch of comments, and also the comment would kind of have to know what is being commented on, and I think it should be the post ID, because you can only comment on a post, and both question and answer are of type posts. So we get a post ID, and let's just make it explicit and call it comment ID. So we have a post ID, we have a comment ID, we have a content, and we have a user. That is what a comment is. No editing is allowed. We have a user, we have a post, a question, and an answer which extends from post. And for the user, we can keep name as a unique value. Ideally, we usually keep like a phone number or an email ID, but maybe it makes sense just to keep name. While writing the driver code, we're gonna make sure that all the users have different names. So let's think about it. Once you have a user object, ultimately that user object will have to interact with the application and post stuff. So post stuff or make comments or basically interact with our website, or with some class. So that class should be maybe like a stack. We'll just call it StackOverflow itself, right? We'll make a StackOverflow class, and that StackOverflow class would do all of this, right? So in behavior, StackOverflow should basically give the functionality to post question for users to post questions and answer questions and add comments. So the StackOverflow class itself is essentially, what would it need? It would have we're skipping the authentication part of it, so users don't need to authenticate, and we'll just create a user and say that okay, the StackOverflow, anyone can do that without authentication, because it's out of the scope for this question. So we need to store questions, we need to store multiple answers for each question, and comments for each question and answers, right? What I'm wondering is, should comments be part of the question and answer? For example, since comments are allowed on question and answer, an argument can be made that a post can have comments, right? So we can probably have a list of comments for each post, and that is of a comment type. So this comment type, which has a comment ID, content, user, and post ID, this will be attached to a post, so it will be attached to a question answer, which makes sense, right? A question has comments, it has these tags, it has a user, rating, and content. So I think it makes sense. So effectively, a Stack Overflow application would just need to track questions and answers, right? So it has to have multiple answers to each question. Yeah, and when we are displaying this, do we want to have a certain order in which we display it? Yeah, we can display it with rating, with the highest rated ones, I guess, because both question and answers have ratings. So when we display the answers for a particular question, we can order them by rating. That makes sense. So it's a one-to-many relationship. Yeah, so we can have like a let's call it data. Let's just call it data, and the data would basically be a dictionary from a question to a list of answer, right? So the data is a dictionary where the key is the question, and the key is the question, and the value is the answer. So this would house all the data. What else does Stack Overflow need? It needs some functionalities, but does it need any other form of data? Not really, right? People, like, if this is there and we can modify the printing out function and effectively search and rating and all that would kind of just be part of this data only, right? Because everything is housed in question and answers, right? The comments are part of the question and answers, the question and answer part of the data. So let's look at behaviors that Stack Overflow would have. Maybe post question is there. Post question should have a user object, should take in a user object. A user will create a question and probably a question object, right? An argument can no, it can't be made actually. So every time we get the post, yeah. So we have user object, we have questions with the question object. So when we do post a question, I'm wondering, because a post already has a user attached to it, right? And when we say a question has a user attached to it, do we not want to have post question just take a question, because the question entity does have a user attached to it? So we're gonna make a question outside somewhere, and then we're just gonna call post question with the question, and it will just automatically post the question. The other way, like for example, I'm saying is that when we call these, for example, we created a user object from user, right, with some name, let's say John, right, and some repetition score is probably calculated internally. And then when we create a Stack Overflow instance, are we gonna do program dot post question, and what are we gonna do over here? One way is that we create a question object, right? We create a new question object. That's the first way, that we say that okay, we're gonna just pass in a question which would have the content, it would have the user object, so it'll actually have the user object and all. So we're going to pass in a question object over here, or we are going to separately pass in a user and a question. I think while calling it, it's not like that big of a difference, to be honest, because either we pass the user object within the constructor of the question, or the other argument can be made that we create the question within post question, in which case we don't actually pass an entire question object, but we just give the content of the question and create the question object within the post question function. I think that makes a lot more sense, because in our main function it doesn't, I don't see it fit that our main function should be creating a question object itself. So maybe it makes sense to just pass in the question content, right? So when we talk about a question, mainly it has content. It probably has rate, some sort of a, oh, it does need to post tag, right? Yeah. So it makes sense to have tag over here. Let's call it tag with a capital T. Enum, and this enum is basically called tag. So let's say it's tag. So when a post question is called, a user is passed, a question content is given, and the tag is given. Can we construct the question object from that? I think the rating is internally calculated, the ID is internally calculated, content is given, user is given. Comments initially are 0, so I think it's fine. Later on we'll have comments. So I think it makes sense to have a post question like this. We'll also have a post answer. Before the post answer, how is the user has to find the question, read the question, and then post an answer to that question, ideally. So there has to be basically the search functionality, of course, has to be over here. And when we look at our requirements, the search, wow, so already 24 minutes in. These interviews usually last 45 minutes to an hour. Yeah, I think basically in a real interview cannot keep more than 30 minutes for this exercise, right? Like post 30 minutes you have to start coding, otherwise you won't be able to complete it. Wow, that's tight actually, but it's okay. So we have our search functionality. In search functionality, it was that users can search using keywords, they can search using tag, or they can search using user profiles. We can keep an overloaded function over here, right? We can keep an overloaded function over here, in which either it takes in a keyword which is of type string, or it takes in a tag of type tag, of course, and or it takes in a user object. Do we want to actually pass in the entire user object over here? Let's see. So for now, let's pass in the user object, because we would have that user object in our main function. Ideally, maybe we could just pass in the user name, but let's see. So then we have a post answer. When we post answer, we kind of need to know the question ID, what we're talking about, right? Because for which question are we actually posting an answer for? And we have the content, right? Does the answer have anything else? It has probably the users object as well, like which user is actually posting the answer. And then you have comment, and the comment should take effectively the post ID, right? Because a comment can be on a question as well as an answer. It takes post ID, it takes the content, and it takes the user posting, right? Yeah, that sort of makes sense. So now when we think about it, you have a user entity, we have a post entity from which extends a question entity and an answer entity, and then you have comments, and then anyone interacting with the Stack Overflow API can post those comments, search. One interesting thing over here is search. It depends on how fast we want the search to be. We have three types of searches right now because the data we are storing is in a question answer format. Like for example, if search by user is passed, imagine how that search would look, because suddenly a user object is given and each question is tied to a user object. So what's going to happen is we're going to have to go through the entire dictionary and check for each question whether that was posted by that particular user, maybe even for each answer whether that was posted. So it will take O of n time, where it would definitely take O of n time. We'll have to sift through every single one of them because we don't have an index on user. If we do care about latency in this, we could have some other data structures as well, where we have something indexed with user or something indexed with tag. Currently we only have it indexed with question. So yeah, it's definitely not optimized for search, but if we really wanted to optimize it for search, we could locally running it, we could have more data structures which are sort of indexed on the property we are searching on, or use some sort of a SQL database and add indexes over there. So there are ways to do it, but for now I think we'll keep it simple and just see if we can come up with the core functionality, right? So the non-functional requirements, that's why non-functional requirements, I haven't included latency over here. So even if these searches are taking longer, we are okay with it. Concurrent access should be handled. We'll try to do that. We'll make sure that we use locks in critical sections of these functions, whichever, basically any function which modifies, reads or edits, writes to this data object is basically inside a critical section. So we need to implement locks in these questions, and that's how it's going to be basically. So now that we have our basics set up, yeah, so let's start coding. Let's come up with our classes. So first we had our user class. Let's do user def init name. So the user class takes in a name. The reputation score is probably just calculated. So let's do self.name is equal to name and self.reputation score is equal to 0 currently. So whenever the user performs some action, maybe posts a question, or I think for search it doesn't matter if they contribute to Stack Overflow in some way, either through posting a question or posting an answer or commenting on a post. In that situation, I think we're gonna update the reputation score. So we're not gonna keep it in the user. Let's say we have a post class. The post class would let's define the constructor for it, right? Self. So the ID is probably internally generated, so we can keep maybe an ID over here. Let's set it to 1 for now, and we'll keep changing it up. So what else does a post class really need? It needs content, of course, of type string. It needs rating. I think rating is internally calculated. When we create a post, it will be 0. We need a user, which is important. So we do need a user, right? And we need comments, which is initially there are no comments, so I think we're good. I think we're good, right? This is a post class. Okay. So in the post class, self.id is basically post.id, right? This is we're talking about a specific, we're talking about the ID parameter, right? So we can set it to post.id and say we add 1 to the post ID. So this post.id is actually tied to the class of post. So whenever we create new objects, this ID is gonna keep getting incremented, and we are going to keep using it in our post ID. So effectively, all our questions, all our answers would actually have different IDs like this, right? And so we got our ID, and we do self.content is equal to content, and self.user is equal to the user object, right? So when we create a post, this is what would happen. So interestingly here, let's add another function called update reputation add reputation score, add reputation, right? And let's give it some value, integer. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna do self.reputation score. We're gonna add the value. That's it, right? So for example, when we are creating a post object and we're saying, okay, this user was able to essentially create this, we're gonna say that actually at this point we don't know whether the post, so we can assign different values to question and answer. We can say that asking a question has a repetition score of 1 and increments the repetition score by 1, and adding an answer increments the repetition score by, or maybe asking a question or adding an answer increments the repetition score by 2, and commenting increments the repetition score by 1. Let's use that as a metric. So let's say we repetition score, let's just define it, 2 for question and answer, and 1 for comment, right? So in this case, like this is the I think repetition for now, the user just gets set, nothing else. We will update the user object, but within the question and answer itself, or because it's 2 for both, we can actually update it over here as well when we get the user object self.user. Okay, and we can do self.user.add reputation and just add 2 to it. So now, because a post can only be of type question and answer, we are keeping 2 as a repetition score for both question and answer. We're doing this. If we want to keep it different, this add reputation should not be called over here, but rather within, when we extend this post class into the question and answer class, we would add it over there instead. So this doesn't have any other things, so let's go with question. This of course extends post, and let's define our constructor over here, right? It takes tag, so we do need to define an enum. So actually let's just, because we're not using it above this, let's just define it over here itself. Imports enum from enum. Actually I'm not 100% sure of this import. I did use it in yesterday's question, so I'm just gonna look it up real quick. I'm sure I used an enum somewhere. Yeah, so let's pick this up, right? So it's just import enum. Okay, we did do an import enum, and we define it here. It's called tag enum.enum, and then the tag, there are 3 categories we decided, which are sports, gaming, and movies. So we have sports, gaming, and movies, right? So we have 3 categories, and our question would take a tag object, right? Tag object, tag dot, no, it's just okay. So it takes a tag object, and here we probably want to call the I guess we have to take other stuff as well, right? We have to take the content, we have to take the user, and effectively we want to call the self dot super. I think it was something like this. I'll just cross check it once. Basically what we're trying to do is calling the constructor, right? We're trying to call the constructor, but this didn't take any variables, that's why. So yeah, we're calling the parent class as constructor over here. So effectively what's going to happen is we're going to create a question instance, and in that question instance we're going to create a post instance, and that gets created content and user we have to pass, right? So we'll pass in the content, pass in the user, and hopefully this will work fine. And we'll add another field called tag and just set it to tag, right? So now our question has a tag. Similar to question, we also have an answer, but the answer doesn't take in a tag, right? Feels a little bit weird that we're kind of that our answer and our post are basically the same, because if I look at the answer class, we're not doing much over here, but I still think it's a good idea to keep it over there, because in the future, like if we look at the entity of answer, it's not the same as just a post, because a post can be a question as well. So later on, if we decide to add something specific to answer, then the number of changes which would be required would be easy, right? For example, if we just used post instead of answer, and the question takes it from post, but later we decide that answer should have this extra field, then it would be a little bit of a problem, because suddenly now we cannot alter post because question also gets altered. So I think it does make sense to maybe just keep like an empty answer over here. Okay, so we got our user, we got our post, question, answer. Next we want our comments, right? Comment. Okay, so our comment has an ID which is internal. Maybe one second, I think we have to define it. Def yeah, so our comment has a ID. Let's say this also has an ID, and this ID is probably different from a question and answer ID. Yeah, let's start it with 50 or something like that. We can also define a particular ID like very specifically and take a unique value, but for now, just to test it out, we're gonna do this. The comment, then we have content of the comment, which is of type string. We have the rating, which is internally calculated. Don't the question and answer have ratings? Wait, what happened to the, did we not define rating in post? Yeah, we didn't define rating, right? Rating in comments should be defined over here, to be honest. Self dot rating 0, self dot comments is a empty list effectively. And in comments we have an ID which is sort of internal, so we got a self dot ID which is equal to comment.id, right? And we can increment comment.id. Then we have self.content, which is equal to the content which is passed. We have user and post ID as well, right? So both these things need to be passed, user and post ID, which is probably just an integer. So we get self.user and self.post ID, which is post ID. So you got a comment class, and I think the last one is the StackOverflow class. So let's start implementing the StackOverflow. quick time check. Man, we're 43 minutes in. I think these questions, like, we are kind of on time, you could say. I think I would prefer it to be faster, because in a real interview setting, a lot of times even the interviewer can ask some specific question, or some time goes in the introduction. So it's, in an environment where there is no interviewer, and we're just concentrating on getting the question done, and resolving all the assumptions ourselves. We should be able to do it within 45 minutes. That should be our goal. If you can do it within 45 minutes, I think in a real interview setting, doing it within 1 hour would be comfortable. Anyway, so right now we are at 43, and I don't think we are nowhere near done. Actually, it's not that far away as well, because we are on the last class. So let's see. So Stack Overflow. Let's define a constructor, self, and the data is internally stored, I guess, so doesn't really have much. But the Stack Overflow instance, I guess it makes sense to have self.data and set it to an empty dictionary for now, because we don't have question and answers. Once we do have them, we can add something. So we have a post question function, right? And the post question function would take in a user object, the user posting the question, and the content. It would also have a tag, right, which is of type tag. Can we just write tag over here, or do we have to write enum.tag? No, I think we can just write tag over here. Okay. So now comes a little bit of an interesting part. When we do post a question, we're actually modifying the self.data variable. So since we need to support concurrency as one of our non-functional features, we need to add some sort of a locking system over here, so that this post question does not interfere with some concurrently executing function. So I'm going to go to Gemini real quick and check out how locking works in Python. Implementing lock in Python. Okay, so the basic concept of a lock, if you're not aware, is that for example, like I'll tell you what the problem is. The problem is that suppose this data has something, right? And suppose there's one user interacting with the data object. Then it's fine, because that user will call one of these functions. It will call post question or search or post answer, something like that. But imagine if multiple people are interacting with it in the same time. It's possible that one user is posting a question, another user is answering a question, and another user is searching, right? So the results that each user gets could be inconsistent. Like, for example, the ordering of what happens first is not defined, since that the same code kind of gets hit by multiple threads. So a lock is essentially just a way to ensure that only one piece of code at a time is modifying the data. So when we say someone is posting question, the entire post question, the critical section inside the post question, should complete before some other operation is done on the self.data variable. I think it will become a little bit more clear when we actually implement it. So you can see that we got a lock, and we will define the lock within the class, right? We can also maybe we can define it as a variable, like as an instance variable, right? Because the lock should be at the same level as the data, I feel. Anyways, so we got a lock, and then how we use it is with lock, right? Yeah, so even if we make multiple threads while testing this out, we're going to use the same instance of Stack Overflow. and because it's the same instance, keeping lock tied to the Stack Overflow object, I think it's fine. It makes sense. Anyways, so we get post question. So it says that we can do with lock, and then just needs to be protected from concurrent access. So obviously it's going to give an error because it's self.lock. And here, what happened over here? Self is not defined. Okay, I think this is better. And anything within the post, within this block of code over here after self.lock will be in the critical section. So that is guaranteed to to be safe from concurrency. So post question, right? What do we want to do in post question exactly? We would like to basically we just want to modify the data variable, right, and add a question to that. So we, in order to modify this, effectively, what was data? The data was a dictionary from question to a list of answers. Let's just make it a list of answers. So we want to create another entry in the data, right? So maybe we can even check for duplicates. If two users post the same, we can just say the question already exists if it's exactly the same question. Otherwise we can skip that. We did not write that in the requirements. Maybe we can skip. There's not a lot of code to implement that functionality, to be honest. We just have to check whether this data has that key or not. Has that. Oh, actually this would be the question ID, right? Maybe. Would this be a question ID? No. It would actually be an actual question object. One second. Would it be a question object or a question ID? When you talk about the data, each question ID is linked to an answer, right? Then how do we how will this work? One second. So when someone does a post question, so each shouldn't the answer be tied to the question itself? We were keeping, because there are multiple answers to a question, so in the Stack Overflow we were keeping a dictionary from question to a list of answers, but given a question ID, can we extract that question from somewhere? Are we even, so we don't have a database in this scenario, right? Because we are using in memory. So because we are using in memory, one idea is to create another class for a database and just house the questions and answers over there, and then the Stack Overflow application can just keep the question ID to the answer IDs, and whenever we need to fetch the question and answer, we're just going to call that database class and kind of get the questions and answers. I think that's one way to go about it. The other way to go about it is to actually have the entire question. So we will take the question object, we'll serialize it, and we'll add it over here. So whenever when the user kind of tests out the question, they're gonna test it using the question ID, right? Like the search would happen with we'll have to sift through the questions, right? The content of the questions, we'll have to sift through them as well. So although this is a dictionary from, maybe what to do in this scenario? Maybe it makes sense to have this as a question ID. So this list of answers is here, but we also sort of keep questions over here, which is a list of questions, right? Why I'm doing this is because we don't have a database instance. Ideally the way to go about it is to add another class called DB and save these things in the DB itself, and whenever we actually want an actual question, we call the DB and get it from there. But right now, since we're housing everything inside the Stack Overflow class, maybe it makes sense to have questions like this. Are answers searchable? One second. Are answers searchable? The user can search using keyword for the question. They can search tags, and for the questions again, and they can search user profile. So the answers are not searchable, so we can keep it as a list from the question ID. I think that's okay. So we have, instead of data, we call it question answer map, right? And we keep another dot questions as a list, right? So when we say that we are going to post a question, we definitely need to create a question object. So new question is equal to, and of course we gonna create question. What is there in the question? How do I create a question? It takes a tag, content, and user, right? So the tag is passed, the content is passed, and the user is also passed, right? User is also passed. So we got a new question object, and we say okay, self dot questions dot append our new question, right? And so when we are creating this question object, we don't really need to be within the critical section, I guess. Does it need to be in a critical section? Like creating a question object, so just when we are creating the object, no, I don't think it needs to be a critical section. So self.questions.append new question. We also take the question ID. We already have the question ID from new question.id, and we say that self dot question answer map, and we add new question dot id, and we initialize it to an empty string, not an empty string but an empty list, and this list would actually have all the answers, right? We can even, instead of keeping this as a list, another idea would be to keep this as a map from tag to questions. Like basically we can add a index. That's the thing, right? So when you implement this as a DB database, we want to keep these questions in a database. We can index it based on the kind of queries we want to do. For example, in this scenario, we are the queries we want to perform are searching by keyword, by tag, and user profile. So ideally we would kind of understand the business requirement that how many people, like how the frequency of search by the keyword or frequency of search by tag or user profiles, and based on that we're going to keep a call on what to index by, or do we want to keep multiple indices. But as a non-functional requirement in this particular question, we don't have that. We don't have latency as a non-functional requirement. So here I'm going to stick to the requirements, and I'm just going to implement it as a list, and I'm just going to sift through the questions of the list. So so this is done, right? Post question I think is done. What else does this do? Let's do post answer quickly. Post answer. Okay, post answer takes in self. It takes a question ID. Okay. It takes a content. It takes a user. Oh yeah, so we are posting questions, right? So yeah, when we created this new question object, at that time this user kind of got updated, I'm guessing, right? Add reputation got updated, which is cool. So here we create a new answer, I guess. Answer object, and here we instantiate an answer. I keep misspelling this answer object, right? And the answer object takes in content and user, right? So it doesn't take in tag. Doesn't the answer object take in a question ID? Oh no, we're storing it over here, right? Just question ID. Okay, I got it. Question user, I take it over here, and then with self.lock, we are going to we need to basically add an answer to the answer map, right? So self.answer map at question ID. Currently the answer map was nil, so okay, so let's check if question ID in or maybe not in the answer map, then we say that map at the question ID is probably equal to an empty list, right? And then we say that, you know, for this question ID we are just gonna append the new answer. Awesome. So we got the post answer as well. What else? So we got the post question, post answer. I think comments are left and search is left. I've left the search for later. Post comment, let's just call it post comment instead of just calling it comment. Post comment takes self. It takes a post ID. Post ID. 1 second. The comments are tied to a post. We're gonna have to go through every single answer and every single question. The questions we can go through here, but the answers we're gonna have to. Let's just keep another answers. This is one way, or we can just keep posts and, you know, just add everything over there. Self-dot questions. Yeah, we can just keep self-dot answers. Let's just keep self-dot answers for now, and let's populate this with answers. Okay, this is basically we're adding a new answer. Answers dot append the answer. Awesome. So post comment, we get a post ID. Oh man, we don't know whether it's a question or an answer. It would have been better if we knew it was a question or an answer. Like, are we posting on a question or are we posting on an answer? Or we can just figure it out as well, so that's okay. We got a post ID integer, we got a content and user, right? That's it. Content, user. Great. So now what we want to do is we want to find the post with that ID essentially, and we take for each question in self-dot questions, right? For each question in self-dot questions, what we want to do, self-dot question q should not be capital, right? Questions. If question dot ID is equal to the post ID, then we've sort of found it, right? So posts have comments, right? Posts have comments. Did we? Since posts have comments, oh, so this actually needs another function, right? Yeah, it needs a function called add comments. Add comment rather, self, and it takes the content. Right, it takes the content, and what we can do is self dot comments dot append, and we just, you know, just append the content. Actually, not just append the content, we have to create a comment object over here, right? Yeah. What does the comment object take in? It takes content, user, and post ID. Okay, it takes content, user, object, right? Yeah, user and post ID. So post ID is just self.id, right? ID. One thing to note is maybe, right, when we are adding comments and all that, it makes sense to just keep IDs, because here our comment object, where is our comment object? Yeah, our comment object currently contains the entire user object, which honestly doesn't need to. It just needs to have a user ID, and maybe if we want other details about a user, we can kind of go to a database and fetch it. I do understand that. The thing is that when we're implementing everything at such a small scale, it's not going to make a difference, but obviously while doing it in a setup where there are a lot more users, and there are a lot more non-functional requirements, this would not be the way to go. I think in the low-level design interviews we can still do it like this, but it is important to call it out to the interviewer. So if I'm doing it like this, the interviewer should at least be aware that I know this is not the right way to go about it. It's just that in the constraints of that interview, this is working out. Anyways, so we have post comment. If question ID is equal to post ID, what do we do? Question dot it's add comment and content and user it takes. And maybe something similar for answers, right? Okay, we got the post comment out of the way. Then we have search. Okay, search, we thought we would overload it, right? And we would keep 3 types. So we would keep time check, quick time check. Oh, it's already crossed 1 hour. Let's just wrap this up. Keyword string, so that's probably one type of search. Then we have search using tag and search self. Actually, when we're searching, we're just searching for questions, right? So search, we just assume it's for questions. Self dot user, it's a user object, right? And okay, so wait, what? Yeah, so for each question in self dot questions, I think we forgot to add the lock in the post comments part of it. Probably should. And in search we should maybe also add the lock. So for each question, and we check Python check substring. Oh, it's simple. Okay, fine. So for each question, if keyword in question dot content oh, it's multiple, right? 1 second. Because multiple questions could actually have that keyword. So we do result dot append the question object, I guess. So what should search do exactly? Search should it return the actual questions, or should it just print out the questions? I think it should just print out the questions, right? So we just get all the questions within a result, and then we do for each element in result, or let's just call it q in result. We can say print q. That's pretty much it, right? And because we're doing this inside the question, actually inside we have to override the toString function, right? So on the let's just override it in the post. Self, that's pretty much it, and we have to define what gets shown. So return, and we do self dot user dot name, right? We add the name, and we maybe add the content, self dot content, right? Maybe it makes sense to add the ID as well, self dot ID, and this has to be changed into a string plus, and just to make sure it's ID. I think that's it, right? So here it makes sense that we just printed out the questions, and that would print out the questions because questions were taken from post, and we overrid the toString function of the post. Okay, so now it's searched by tags. Similar function if question in for question if keyword in question.content, rather than that if tag is equal to question.tag, then we append the question, and we do the same thing. And then we have the last search which is also sort of similar to this, in which we say that if the user dot name is equal to question dot user dot name, then we do the same thing. I think that's about it, right? Let's kind of write some use cases. So I think we are anyways above time. We are at 1 hour 10 minutes. I'm gonna skip on writing use cases for multi-threaded functions just to check out the concurrency. Like one of our non-functional requirements was concurrent access should be handled. We have handled it using self.log. Like we have handled it using the threading library of Python and using log. So I'm not going to test that particular thing out, but let's test the core functionality at least. So in order to test it out, what do you want to do? Let's create a couple of users, right? Let's say user1 is equal to user object, and let's say this guy is Ronaldo. Okay, and does the user object have anything else? No, it just has a name. Okay, shouldn't it show me? Okay, also we create a let's just call it SO program instance maybe, and we call it StackOverflow. And what is needed to instantiate StackOverflow? Absolutely nothing. So I think, yeah, we got the program. Let's call it StackOverflow only. Oh man, StackOverflow, right? And suppose we want to do StackOverflow dot, and see, we got like a couple of things. Let's ask a question over here. So how are we going to print out everything? We have to add a functionality to check whether we are doing fine, right? Because currently, yeah, or we can just use search, right? Yeah, so post question, And the post question, what does it do? It takes, okay, so post question is through content and tag, right? User, does it also take user? Oh, user, content and tag. So user one, and you give content, who is the best football player, and you give a tag dot, is it not tag dot? Oh, it is tag dot sports. And let's just add a couple of questions here, right? What other tags did we have? We have movies. Let's add it for a movie, which suggests a good horror movie. We have gaming. Who is the best support in the Dota 2 current meta? Let's add another one for sports, and we will keep it as player. Instead of football, we'll keep basketball. And let's add, so we were searching by, so keyword search, because player is there in both, we're gonna do a keyword search by player. Oh, we can add another player over here, right? And we have movies, and maybe we can add gaming over here across categories. For tag, we'll search for the tags, sports or something like that. And for user, well, all of them belong to the same user, so let's just add another user. User 2 is equal to user, I don't know, John, right? And some of these questions are asked by John. And who is the best football player? Across tags, right? We need to keep player. Okay, best Valorant player. Okay, so now what we do is, instead of going, do we want to go through search? We can go through search as well. Stack Overflow, let's call it SF, to be honest. Okay, so sf dot search, right? And let's give the user object, and let's try it out. So it's the first time we're executing. High chance that it's not gonna work. Oh, this is the blackjack game. Oh, my bad. Stack Overflow. Let's see. Python main compiler. There was no compiler. That is crazy. We just wrote out the entire code and there was 0 compilation errors. Man, that just made my day actually. That is crazy. Did we run anything before this? No, right? We didn't run, like, we didn't test out any of the classes. We didn't do anything. It's just, out of the box, it's just working fine. That's pretty cool. Anyways, is the answer at least correct? So we did user 1, who is the best football player and suggest a good horror movie. Yeah, that worked. So let's change the search to something else. The search, so we did the search by user. Let's do the search by tag dot, which tag do we want? Something with 2. Let's do gaming. Oh, this one didn't work. Okay, why did it not work? We did give a tag, and for each question inside dot questions, if tag is equal to the question tag, we append the question. Should have worked, right? Yeah, I think it should have worked. Anyways, let's kind of check out what went wrong. So I'm going to add a function over here, which overrides the toString function, and all I'm going to do is just effectively for q in self dot questions, just print out the q. print questions, or maybe saved questions, and saved answers. Self dot answers a. Okay, and let's see what happened. What's the problem is, before this I'm just gonna print out SF, right? And what this is gonna do is gonna print out the whatever questions and answers I have stored. So it does have all the questions, right? It does have all the questions. Saved answers gave a problem. Return non-string. No, because the answers are not there. Maybe it makes sense to check whether they're present. Honestly, it shouldn't have caused an error, I feel. Yeah, it's some other error, right? Oh, it should has to return that. Oh my god, okay, sorry. It has to return string. So that's not the issue. Oh, ideally I have, okay, so the it's sort of like a hack. Ideally it shouldn't work like this, but whatever. So saved answer. So the problem is that when we override the toString function, it has to return a string, which we were not doing. That was the problem. And ideally whatever we want to print out, we should put it in a variable and return that string variable rather than printing it out here itself. But it's okay, for now we're using this. So we do have all the all the questions. Wait, why do we have double questions? No, we don't, right? Yeah, we have all the questions correctly. So why did our our search of tag gaming did not work? Search of tag gaming, what problem did it have over here? Because self.questions definitely does have all the questions. The questions are not printing out the tags, unfortunately, because we sort of added in the post. But if it's a question, we do need to print the tags, right? So let's do one thing. Let's take this and add it to questions, and also like add a tag over there, right? So let's also add the tag. Self dot tag, and now since it's like a question object, it should be printing the tags as well. Can only concatenate string, not tag. So okay, so he's saying that the tag is not of a type which can get concatenated with a string, I guess. So yeah, that is fine, right? So it got all the tags as well, which is correct. For some reason my search didn't work, and what just happened? If for each question in self.questions and self.question we checked has everything, if the tag is equal to question.tag, we append the question to the result, and in the end for each question in the result we print out the question. Should it not work over here? Checking. Are these not the same things? Tag and question dot tag? Is it not checking it properly? What's going on over here? It doesn't even reach there. How come this never got printed? Did we even reach here? 1 second. Print inside tag search. What am I doing wrong? Yeah, we don't even reach the tag search. So weird. We definitely should be reaching the tag search, right? Am I doing function overloading incorrectly? How to do function overloading in Python? Is there some other syntax to it? Python does not support function overloading in the same way languages does. It means cannot have multiple functions in the same name but different parameters within. This means you cannot have multiple functions with the same name but different parameters within the same scope. Oh, it doesn't support it. That's okay. Yikes. Man, I thought it supported it. My bad. So let's do one thing. Let's just maybe define a type of search, because we have 3 types of search. So let's just say we have a search type, and then we have keyword, we have tag, and we had keyword, tag, and user, right? Yeah, user. So let's say that we have a search type now, and we only have a single search function which takes in a search type as well, which is search type. No, but this can be of can we pass in a variable with an undefined type? Search term. Search obj. If type is equal to search type dot keyword, then this has to be done. Elif type is equal to search type dot tag, then probably we do something like this. Right? And we just use search object here. Else, and the last one, which is this. Yeah, I think that's okay. We can just remove these. I did not know that function overloading is not supported. I guess that's my fault. One required positional argument search object. Oh, we didn't pass it. Okay. So the search type. Okay. Search type dot tag. Now will it work? Yeah, now it works finally. So I think we can remove this for now, and it returned the tags of gaming, so is the best support in Dota 2 and Valorant player, which is true, and the last one was by user, right? Or did we already do by user? I think search type dot keyword, right? We did by user, so we want to do keyword this time, and keyword we're gonna pass in the keyword of player, and ideally it should work. Yeah, so our search functionality works fine. Now one thing, what's the time? Yeah. One thing I'm sort of wondering is when we do the questions, do we not add comments? Add comment was part of post, so why do we not print them? We should ideally print them as well, right? Yeah, so maybe it makes sense to print. This is the post string, and we do for each comment in self dot comments. Let's do a comment string, right? And we do that comment string plus equal to comment dot content. It is comment dot content, right? Comment dot content. Oh yeah, better way would be to just do string of comment, and awesome. So now this should return the comment, but we don't have a we probably need to override like this as well. So we return, let's do self dot content, and let's add the user, self dot user dot name. That's pretty much it. Okay, so once we have these questions, we're also gonna add a little bit of commenting. So let's do sf dot post comment, and we're gonna post comment. So what does it need while posting comment? It needs a post ID, content, and user. Oh, we're not adding the ID to the posts itself. Are we not adding the IDs? Oh, we are adding the IDs, right? 1 2 3. Yeah, so we are adding the IDs. So for the first ID 1, we'll say that post comment. Let's see. So ID 1 content. This is a best about pure. Let's say messy, and user who posted the comment. So user 2 maybe posted the comment. So we have a comment now, right? And when we search, let's do keyword search, and let's write football. That should give us this particular thing, and that didn't work. One second. Why did it not print out the comment? Should have printed out the comment, right? In this, if the question, print question. Oh, because this does not have a. Yeah, we did, like, we overrid that. That's why. Oh. Yeah, that's an issue. If it would have been the toString function of the post, it would have shown the comment, but here we overrid it to show the tag, and that's why it doesn't have the function, which I don't like, because it seems like it's a little bit of a, it's kind of seems a little redundant, to be honest. Let's see if we can just call the string function directly. to get the string, and then basically we return this and we add just the tag part to it, right? That way we don't have to repeat whatever is happening in the super function. Yeah, so it works, right? Messi John, yeah, it works. So our commenting actually works, which is great. Are we printing answers? What was happening in the question in the like the toString method of this? Yeah, let's just see if the answer also works. sf dot post answer, the question ID. Let's add it. Question ID is 1. Oh, that was a comment. There is no best football player as such, right? And the user, let's just call it user 1 only gives that. So we have, and let's this let's see. Okay, yeah, so we got it, right? Saved answers is this answer right here, which is there is no such football, and Ronaldo gave this answer, and this question had a comment attached to it. I think yeah, that's good. We can probably add more test cases and test it out, but I think overall I'm happy with what happened. And yeah, I think that's it for today's session. Thank you.